informational, but I also, I want to say this is an introductory type of presentation. What I encourage for you to do is have your son or daughter come and see me, and that's where it's really fun, is to help them through that process and help them with some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight, like an athletic resume, or like finding the right fits of schools, or just what they want. And I caution you from past experience where, I may get the call from you as the parent, and hey, will you reach out to Johnny and make sure they come and see you? And hey, come and see me when you get a chance. But that's where it gets a little tricky. And past experience has shown that your son or daughter really needs to initiate some of those conversations. Because we get to the point sometimes where parents want something that doesn't align with the student athlete. And it's great when we're all on the same page, but I've seen plenty of circumstances where the student athlete may get to the point in their athletic career they decide they don't want to play at the next level. And the disconnect sometimes is where parents take the point of view that, wait a minute, we've played select whatever, and we've spent this money and we go to these tournaments. What do you mean you don't want to do it anymore? So and I can help with that conversation too, but it really should be student-driven and student-parent-driven when we get to some of these things that we're going to talk about. But I love playing whatever part in that that I can. Like I said, it's the fun part of the job, and we've had a lot of success helping families find the right fit for their student athletes. Right here at Indian Hill, even in a tricky year last year, we sent 18 kids to the next level. And what was really neat about that was all levels. That was Division III schools at some really great places. That was Division I schools, some really great places. I believe, and I think most coaches would tell you, and we'll talk about here in a minute how many schools and opportunities there are, if you are a good high school athlete, there is a place for you at the next level. It may not be where you want to go, but that's what you need to decide. Do you want to go to a small rural school that you may get a good education and be able to play versus going to Ohio State, where maybe you can, but that's your dream school. So those are some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight. And again, if I didn't introduce myself, Brian Phelps, I'm the athletic director. This is my second year here at Indian Hill. I spent 19 years at Seven Hills down the street and a couple of years down in Fort Worth, Texas, and all three of those experiences were great. And I've had the opportunity to coach a handful of different sports at a lot of different levels and directly be part of that process, helping student athletes find that fit, kind of like I mentioned before. So we'll get started. This was really funny, to me at least, not as much my kids. 6 years ago when, I talk about future Division I athletes and I put my kids, well now I'm actually going through this same type of process as a parent. And they don't think it's as funny, and now I'm a nervous wreck as well. So Madden and Mason, who currently are 10th grade and 4th grade, and Marin and Hawk, 8th grade and 1st grade. So that's, like I said, it's not as funny to them as it was 6 years ago or whenever those pictures are from. Okay, so the agenda for tonight, and I will say this again at the end. If you want a copy of this PowerPoint, send me an email and I'll send you this presentation. So my email will be at the end, but it's brian.phelps@ihsd.us, the typical Indian Hill email. And it's Phelps like the swimmer. But these are the things that we're going to talk about tonight. I'm not going to read every word of every slide. There will be things that, when we talk about dead period and quiet period and that kind of stuff, that you can digest that with the PowerPoint presentation when you get it. But I just kind of want to do an overview of some of the things and get a little deeper in depth with some other things. So maybe the most important part of this process is the Eligibility Center. And what the Eligibility Center is, and if you were a college athlete, or you've done this with a previous kid and it's been a while, it's what used to be called the clearinghouse. So now it's the Eligibility Center. And if your desire is to play at the Division I or Division II level, you need to register with the Eligibility Center. It's not required if your goal is to be a Division III athlete, but a Division III profile or a profile page which fits for Division III is free. Okay? If you are going to have aspirations to be a Division I or Division II, this is an absolute must. And it's going to cost you $90. If it's an international student, I think it's $150. But this is really the start. There is no deadline let me back up a second. So this goes back to being a parent and student task, starting this process, where we come in. Right now it's Karen Post. Karen is retiring, but she's part of the college counseling office. She will be the person, or whoever assumes her role, will be the one to load the official documents, transcripts, test scores into that Eligibility Center. So you create the profile, you pay for it at home, you put in the information that they ask, and then we update it along the way. So if you watch my Brave Spotlight today, I featured, and that's an Instagram and Twitter thing, I featured Karen Post. Tomorrow's actually her last day, and we talked a little bit about her role when it comes to the Eligibility Center and your student athlete. So there's no registration. You can do it right now, no matter what grade that you're in. Typically, it is encouraged that you do it around junior year, and I think that's because as an 8th grader or a 9th grader, those dreams and passions, kind of as I mentioned before, may change by the time you're a junior. So this is kind of the don't waste your money until you know you are willing to try to play at that level. But as I mentioned before, you can do the free profile page at any time. An example that I have, I was a summer baseball guy, and we had a team that was one of the best in the country, and we won the World Series and the type that we played in, and kids from all around this area. And 21 of those guys went Division I from one team of a roster of 24. So a really high-level team. But one of those guys was a really young senior. So he just graduated. Everyone else was going to be rising seniors. He had committed to Denison, an early decision commit, which is a whole other story. He ended up backing out of that, which really kind of wasn't good. But we're in a tournament. He has already graduated, and Rob Smith, the coach at Ohio University, said, hey, do you have any, I forget the year now, 2013s that aren't signed at the Division I level? He just took over. He was trying to bump up his roster. He wanted some pitching. This guy was a perfect fit for that. So we're in the end of June, and this student athlete decided to go ahead and sign with Ohio University. He hadn't registered with the Eligibility Center because Denison was a great fit for him. That's where he was going to go until someone came calling, kind of thing. So the reason that I say, I kind of give you that story and the no registration deadline is it was the end of June. He had already graduated, and he still could go back and get registered and enroll in time in the fall. But it was chaos, So that was one of those circumstances where the $90 a year ago could have really smoothed out that process. But it's not too late, and it's really not too early, but save your money until you know that is part of your goal to play Division I or II college athletics. Some fun facts in the NCAA, and I'll kind of stop there for a second. This presentation is based on the NCAA. So we're talking about Division I, Division II, Division III. At the end, I kind of just mentioned a little bit. There are other avenues to pursue from a college athletic standpoint. There's NAIA, there's junior college. So this is focused for NCAA, but there are other options outside of this. But some of those fun facts, NCAA, which means all three divisions, almost 500,000 kids are participating. So that's a lot. That many teams, that many member schools. So there's over 1,000 Division I, II, and III schools across the country. So what are some of those differences between Division I, Division II, and Division III? Division I is probably what you would guess. You would recognize most of these schools. When you watch a college football game or a college basketball game, or most other sports, those are typically going to be your Division I schools. They're bigger schools. There's more of a commitment to these schools. You will often hear it's like they own you and you can't have a job and you're going to be 80 hours a week doing that. Some of that is actually true. Not all of it, but it is a full-time commitment. Depending on the sport that you play will determine what type of scholarship opportunities there are. Even at the Division I and Division II level, every kid on the roster in most sports, and I'll talk about that in a second, aren't necessarily scholarship athletes. For instance, football at the Division I level offers 85 full-ride scholarships, but they're allowed to have a roster of 105. So they don't necessarily have to offer all 85, but they can offer 85 full-ride scholarships. That's a program that's unlike any other program that we're going to talk about tonight. So, but you figure there's 20 preferred walk-ons or walk-ons to the roster. So not everyone is a scholarship athlete. Participation at those schools, only 4%, right? You have these massive universities sometimes and a very small percentage that are actually on the teams. But there are 351 Division I colleges across the country. As I said a little bit earlier, commitment is a lot higher, but it can be incredibly rewarding, right? I mean, you can have a wonderful and awesome experience playing at really the highest level. And as I'm sure you know, even at the Division I level, there's different levels. There's the Power Fives versus a MAC school. Those are both Division I types of programs, but there's a large range of competitiveness even within that division. Okay, so not that you have to digest this, it's just more kind of, again, some fun information. But there's 2 pages for boys, 2 pages for girls, and it's not even every sport, but just to kind of give you a sense, they are ranked from the percentage of high school athletes that actually play that sport in college, from least to most. Okay, so wrestling being the least. A couple of sports that I just, are more familiar with. When you talk about basketball, that's a roster at the Division I level, that's a roster of 15. On the men's side, they offer 13 scholarships, and those are full rides. They're not partial at the Division I level for basketball. So 13 of the 15 are full rides. So they have 2 preferred walk-ons. We have a student right now that's at Wake Forest playing basketball, and he fits into the preferred walk-on category. On the girls' side, however, there's still a roster of 15, but they give all 15 full rides. So at the Division I level, we had a young lady 2 years ago. The school I'm coming from, Texas, is at Tulane right now. So she's one of those 15, and she's on a full basketball scholarship at that university. I talked a little bit about football. Gives 85 at the Division I AA, which is the FCS now, 63. So Division II schools typically offer less scholarships, not in all cases, but typically offer less amount of scholarships than Division I. And then again, just kind of some fun facts of how many schools offer that sport. Baseball, again, is kind of my wheelhouse when it comes to recruiting. You can have a roster at the Division I level of 40. There are 11.7 scholarships available in baseball of a roster of 40. And it used to be, now COVID, these last couple of years have kind of altered a lot of these numbers. There's a lot of exceptions, so you could go and say, well, you said this, but it's actually, there are some exceptions going on right now. For instance, of that 40-man roster, it used to be you could only have 27 kids getting money, and no one could get less than 25%. So those are some exceptions right now. Now they can give less than 25%, and now you can give 32 kids versus 27. So, as you research this for your sport personally, there are some exceptions and changes going on, and they may go back or they may stay. But just again, to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like, 40-man roster at the Division I level, there's 11.7 scholarships, and for the most part, you can't get less than 25%, except for right now. Does that kind of make sense? So back to the least amount to the highest amount of kids playing. So this chart would tell you, get into fencing, find a nice high school fencing program, and you have about half the chance to be a college athlete in fencing. Does anybody have a guess on the girls' side what the most scholarships offered and the highest percentage of a high school kid going on to do that at the college level? Anybody? Field hockey is about in the middle of the pack. Golf is actually on the lower side. So I'm going to spare you. It's 244%, which doesn't even sound possible. Meaning there's more kids that they recruit to do this sport than even play, and that's rowing. So if you are a female athlete and you're looking for scholarship money and an opportunity to play at the collegiate level, the Division I level, get your kids into rowing. All right, so that's the guys' side. On the girls' side, same thing. We threw out some numbers. Tennis is kind of in the middle on the lower side with only about 5% and 8 scholarships given. And, so again, that's just kind of more of a general sense. If you're a badminton high school player, you have almost no chance to play badminton in college, as this chart tells you. But there's my rowing at the bottom, 20 scholarships offered. Equestrian is a crazy number as well. So, of course, probably sports that most of you would not think of because they're not our traditional high school sports. Division II, some of the differences. There's less colleges, so there's less opportunities. More kids in those colleges participate because the enrollment is low. They're not as big of schools. Less of those schools are recognizable. I mean, just by, of the 308, I would be really surprised if someone in here could name 10. Maybe, but it's just, they're a lot less recognizable. As I mentioned before, there are typically less scholarships available. And it's a little bit better of a balance. Still a high demand from an athletic standpoint. Typically, from an academic standpoint, they are not as high caliber academically. Doesn't mean that's always the case. And you will find very few full-ride scholarships at the Division I level. Just one more kind of back up to Division I, and again, some experiences that I've had. From baseball, I talked about there being 11.7, 40-man roster. You've got to figure some of the big schools are going to find a guy that's throwing 96 miles an hour, or 97 miles an hour. That guy might be getting a full scholarship. So already now you're 10.7 for not 39, but so when we talk about breaking up the scholarships, it doesn't mean that they're going to have 32 kids and break it up in 11.7 or whatever the number is for the sport. Mostly need-based is where you're going to get your money at the Division III level. There are no athletic scholarships. Zero, there are none. So when you hear so-and-so got a full ride academic scholarship to Denison University, they're just confused. I'm not saying they're lying to you, they're just confused. There are no athletic scholarships at the Division III level. Now, that doesn't mean there's not lots of ways to get money. Grants and aid and leadership money. Schools come up with money for kids to participate and go to some really great schools. There are some unbelievably great schools at the Division III level. And talking about more of a balance when it comes to academics versus athletics. I think of the NESCAC, which is probably the, considered by most kind of the Ivy League of Division III sports. And, you're talking about Amherst and Tufts and those types of schools. So a common misconception that I would like to wipe away is he's only going to Division III or she's only going to Division III. That can be the best experience for your kid. It's not always about Division I. That might be the best fit, and that's great. They might find you might be going to a top Division I, but don't rule out because it's Division III. There's money to be had, and it can be a great life experience, still playing at a high level and getting a great education. Some of the schools close that I think of that are up here, DePaul is right over in Indiana, Emory's down in Atlanta, that's Amherst, Johns Hopkins. We had our early signing day, we had 4, which is the same number that we had last year for early signing day. We're going to talk about what that means in a minute. And one of our girls soccer players is going to Johns Hopkins. She has just recently been recognized, as an All-American, All-Region, All-State. She's a heck of a player, plays for a great club in the area. And Johns Hopkins was the best fit for her. For her to say, well, I only want to be a Division I kid and I will go to this school, may have done a true injustice for her, because she is now going to be playing in a very good soccer program and going to one of the best schools, arguably in the country. So once again, no athletic scholarships are available at the Division III level. Okay, so I mentioned before, this presentation is mainly NCAA schools, but there are some other avenues, city colleges, community colleges, junior colleges, NAIA, and if that is a fit for your family, I'm not as well versed with those, but I would still love to help get all the information possible to help to see if that is the best decision for your kid. Okay, so how to find schools. NCAA.org is really where you're going to find all of your information. But if you go to that website or you get this presentation and just click on this link, it'll come up with a map of Ohio. And it'll have every one of those, whatever it was, 1,100 schools listed. And you can search in a lot of different ways. By region, by your sport. Obviously, not every one of those schools offers what you want to do. But this is a really good place to kind of start that search of the schools that are Division I, Division II, Division III, and the sports that they offer. Okay, so some definition of terms. We're going to get through some of these pretty quickly, not really read them, just more informational for you that you can look more into that, or kind of what that means a little bit more at home at another time. But we're going to spend some time with some of these. Okay, so quiet period, dead period, contact period, those are evaluation period. That's the kind of stuff that you can do on your own. But what I do want to do is there are official and unofficial visits. An unofficial visit is we're going to go on vacation and I want to swing by and check out Harvard. And that can be I'm just going to walk around the campus, kind of check it out. That can be, I went to a camp and I really love the Harvard coach, and I'm going to let them know that we're going to be in the area, which is what they prefer. They don't like drop-ins. They will tell you that. But, hey, we met at this camp. I'm going to be in the area. I want to see the campus. Do you have 15 minutes to talk to my family? If they are in town, they will most likely say absolutely, because that costs them nothing. And that gives them an opportunity to kind of do the eye test and get to know you a little bit better and kind of sell their product, their program, okay? So an unofficial visit, anytime, anywhere, for the most part, totally on you, your expense. Versus an official visit, you get 5 of those. An official visit is you have had communication with the school. This isn't, hey, I'm going to decide to go to Michigan for an official visit. Jim Harbaugh, I'm coming. I need you to pay my airfare to get there. That's not you don't get to pick necessarily, every official visit. But you now have a relationship with the coach. Maybe it's a camp, maybe it's, another way that they're recruiting you. And they offer, or you offer, that I would like to take an official visit. Or they say, we would like for you to take an official visit. Back to a personal experience, one of my baseball kids had an official visit at Purdue, and I was lucky enough for his dad not to be able to go. So he said, will you take me to Purdue? Because we're going to be standing on the sideline as Purdue plays Notre Dame. And I said, I probably can make that work. So that was a situation where they take care of the tickets, they could take care of lodging. We drove up there and back, but they take care of meals. So an official visit, you get 5 of those. So if you spend one, for whatever reason, a coach is ready and you're ready your freshman year, I would advise you not to do that. Get to the point where you're a little more serious and ready. But once those 5 are up, that's it. But what's really nice about that is once this relationship has happened, the school picks up, I forget how they term it, kind of regular expenses or normal expenses. Reasonable entertainment expenses is what it says. Okay, so 5. That's official versus non-official. Again, you can take a non-official visit anytime you like, but reach out to that coach ahead of time and let them know that what your plans are. They might say, look, I'm out recruiting, no one's going to be around, don't waste your time. A verbal commitment. This can happen anytime. You have a relationship with the coach, and they say, gosh, I'd really like for you to be here. And you say, you know what, I'm not looking at anywhere else. This is where I want to go. I verbally commit to you that, in 3 years when I graduate, I'll be at the University of Cincinnati. That is nice and it's great. You can tell your friends and family that you verbally committed to wherever. But from a legal standpoint or a contract standpoint, it means absolutely nothing. Besides your word, right? If you're going to tell them you're coming, that's a whole separate category. But legally, or a binding contract, you are not obligated to them and they are not obligated to you. So you hear all the time that so-and-so has changed where they want to go. That was a verbal contract that I'm going to go here, and now I've decided to go there. And everyone's in their legal right to do that. And that happens for lots of reasons, right? Coaches change, or the team isn't as good as you thought they were going to be, or whatever. So my main point on a verbal commitment is it's really great to say I'm verbally committed to where, and you post it on social media, and everybody says congratulations, and then you make a little profile pic and all that kind of stuff. But besides that, it doesn't mean a whole lot from a binding contract standpoint. Now, this is what does mean a lot, the National Letter of Intent. And this only happens if you're getting an athletic scholarship, meaning the Division I and the Division II level. So when we have signing day, and you are getting a scholarship, the school will provide you their National Letter of Intent, and that is a binding contract. Typically, what we will say is we have a blank piece of paper for you, and this is a photo op and an opportunity for us to celebrate you and acknowledge this awesome accomplishment. But go home, take care of the legal contract, send it in yourself. We'll do it for you, but we will recommend that you take care of this part. Okay, so this is when it becomes a legal obligation. They have offered you money to go to school to play athletics or to participate in athletics, and you are accepting that scholarship. What many people don't realize is an athletic scholarship is technically good for 1 year. So when you commit to go on an athletic scholarship, most of the time that will be good for 4 years. But legally, it's a year-to-year contract. Okay? How many people sign the National Letter of Intent each year? How many participate in the National Letter of Intent? So, signing days. Yesterday was early signing day for football. So the guys that already know right away, this is where I'm going, they did their legal contract, National Letter of Intent yesterday. Last month, we had our early signing day. It was actually on November 15th, I believe we did it on. And it was really anyone that was ready to commit to their school. Some of those were technically national letter of intent signings. Some of those, like our Johns Hopkins, was a commitment letter. And at the Division III level, they will send you a letter of commitment or letter of intent, and it's for you to have something to sign. So we did that the first time. We will do our next signing day because we did not have anyone yesterday in the early signing period for football. We will gather up the next round of signees, typically right before spring break. Again, last year we had 18. We had 4 for early signing day. We had, I think, 10 that right before spring break. And then we have this, and you will hear me say this, we will have as many signing days as you need to recognize your kid. So what I mean by that is, once you get after spring break, they're mostly Division III signees, because either you're waiting to make that final decision, roster spots open at schools. So those late, kind of right up until graduation, are typically Division III commitments. And we want to make sure that if it's the last day of school or we had graduation, it's June 15th, we're going to come on in here and make a big deal about it, because it is a big deal, whether it's any of these levels that we're talking about. These dates, of course, change every year, but it's kind of the general same sense of time. Okay, name, image, likeness. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but there are kind of a couple little, this is a new thing. This means as a college athlete, you can make money while you are participating in college athletics. I don't think we know where it's going to go yet. The story that I have for you is Quinn Ewers, who that name may sound familiar to some of you. South Lake Carroll guy, which is down in Texas, right where I was from. Or not from, but was. I'm from Cincinnati. 5-star recruit, #1 recruit in the nation for his class. Skipped his senior season at South Lake Carroll, who's the perennial, state champions and one of the best programs in the country. Because Texas is one of the states where you are not allowed to commit to NIL as a high school student. So it would have cost him $1.4 million to stay in high school. So what he did was he reclassed, he had enough credits, he enrolled at Ohio State a year early, so instead of going into his senior year, now he's a freshman at Ohio State. The marketing company that he signed, the name, image, likeness, that's what NIL is, name, image, likeness, deal with, were for autographs. So for his autographs, he made $1.4 million. He was not on the depth chart at Ohio State. If you're a football fan or an Ohio State fan, C.J. Stroud, who's another freshman, was the starting guy. So was not in the top group of, not even mentioned at Media Day, of players to watch or guys coming through. And now has entered the transfer portal, which we're not even going to talk about tonight. And that's getting crazy and exploding. And now is on his way back to Texas, the University of Texas. So that was a kid that decided it doesn't make any sense for me to stay in high school. So he skipped his senior year, didn't play at all at Ohio State, made $1.4 million, and now is already transferred. So just kind of what that name, image, likeness is. That's why I put it in the slide. You can kind of get a little better gist of what that is. But it's basically college athletes can now earn money while being college athletes. Okay, probably the most important part of the presentation, and that's steps to being recruited. So I'll try not to jump all over the place here, but some helpful hints. If you want to be a marine biologist, you probably shouldn't look at the University of Minnesota. Making that, maybe they have a great marine biology, but when you get into this and you start kind of, and I know at 17 or 18, you may not have any idea what you want to do, but that really should be the foundation of the school that you're picking. So you need to spend some time with, I think I want to be in business, or I think I want to be a marine biologist, or I think I want to be, well, let's make sure you're targeting schools that have those programs. And kind of back to that map link that I showed of finding schools and what they have, that's how you start doing that. You know, you start going to their website, you see the majors that they have. So this takes some investigation on your part. This is a parent and student driven process. So we talked about the eligibility center, and start making your list. If you are a soccer player, you really should have 3 lists. And whether you're a freshman right now and you truly dream big, dream big. Have your wish list. Have your 5 schools that are, you know, I will call them, you may not realize this yet, but your reach schools, your top 5 programs in the country. Top 5 programs in the country is every single soccer player's wish list, or reach school. You know, there's only so many roster spots. So have that, dream big, and work for that. But be cognizant enough that you need a couple other lists as well, okay? And that's just your, maybe a little more realistic, okay? Maybe I'm not going to Stanford, but Miami might be a great fit for me, you know, for the sport that I play. And you know what? Maybe I'm not a Division I MAC level player, but golly, Denison is a great school. Or Amherst, you know, my grades are out of this world and I can get into a Tufts or Amherst. So be as realistic as possible and have those, you know, and then that third category, this fallback schools, where are you willing to go and you will be happy? Not that I'll go anywhere that takes me, but where are you truly willing to go and you feel like it could still be a fit? Okay? So some of these steps of being recruited, and you should have some video. And I'm going to talk about this in a little bit. You don't need to pay a company to have the coolest songs and the transitions and what most college coaches have the time for are about a 2 or 3 minute video. You know, they have things to do. They're busy, and if you are interested in that school, there's probably at least 50 other kids that day that are interested as well. So give them some meaningful video. You know, some of that can be practice, you know, showing your skills and drills and how you can handle the puck or whatever. But some of it should be actual game footage. And it's not necessarily just a highlight tape. You know, I've scored 20 goals, and every part of this video is me scoring the goal. You know, it can be something like, I got beat, but look at how I recovered, and I didn't sulk, and I hustled my butt to get back. Like, those are kinds of things that I would encourage you to think about what a video could show. You know, basketball, I missed a dunk, but I hustled back, and I blocked it and grabbed it and outlet, got back and finished the layup. You know, I mean, so don't cut out the miss the dunk. Cut out that you missed the dunk and you didn't cry baby about it and you hustled your butt back. Like those are the kinds of things that over and over I hear from coaches that they want to see. Okay? We can all, you know, it's like glamour shots. You can pretty it up really good, really well. But, you know, show some of those other things too and how you respond. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit. You've made your list. You have your reach school, you have your realistic school, you have your fallback schools. Now it's time to really get into those, and that's why you don't want to have 20 in each category. It is almost impossible for you to spend the time needed to really understand. Those lists can change, but start at a point and start marking schools off when you realize it's not for you. So research those schools, make sure they have the major that you think that you want. And here's a tricky one. So, and I'll stop talking about baseball at some point, I know, but we had one of the best catchers around, and tons of places wanted him. Ohio State wanted him, and Michigan wanted him, and he wanted to go to Miami. I'm making that up a little bit, kind of that, because I don't remember the schools. But Miami, they weren't giving him any love. And it's like, how in the heck can Ohio State want this kid, but Miami doesn't want him? There's a reason for that in every single sport. They have 11.7 scholarships, as I've said 5 times. And they already have 4 catchers on their roster. And 2 of them are freshmen, and one's a sophomore, and one's a junior. They don't need you. they're not going to pick one of those catchers off because you may be just as good or a little bit better. So when you're looking at the University of Virginia's roster for field hockey, and you're a goalie, do they have 4 goalies on the roster and they're all seniors and juniors, so you know they're going to be recruiting your class? That's the kind of stuff that you're looking for. Okay? If they're very young, they're probably not looking for your position, you're recruiting you. So those are some things to be kind of mindful of. And then when you get the chance, this might be in that unofficial visit, see what the culture's like. Or maybe you are now at the point where you have an official visit, you get to spend time with the team, because that's what they do, right? Bring you in, we're going to make you feel like, you know, we're going to show you how we eat, how we hang out, we're going to have fun. That's the time. How is it really here? How is Coach? You know, is what I see what we're going to get, or are they crazy? You know, talk to parents when you get the opportunity. Those things can happen. You might have to do a little bit of work to make it happen, but those are normal types of things through this process that you should be thinking about. Expense. Not everyone is, you know, as we've said, is going to get an athletic scholarship. Maybe you're going to go Division III and you're going to Boston and the tuition's $75,000. You have to determine as a family, can you make that work, or is that unrealistic? Even if you're going to get $30,000 in leadership money, can you still make that work? That's okay for that to be a hurdle and that to be a reason you don't go to a certain school. And then location. If you are a homebody, you probably don't want to go to the University of Washington. You know, it's just not going to be a good fit. So just because they like you, or there's something about them that you like, those are the things when you really get down and dirty with this stuff. You have to make some tough decisions. Is this really where you are going to be happy? Okay, that first contact. And I have already helped with some of our kids right here. And I'll say it 1,000 times. This is the most fun part of my day. When I get to say, okay, you are interested and you're excited. I'm going to be excited with you. And I'm going to go through these kinds of things. And I'm going to give you some homework to come back, because I'm not going to do it all for you. Not because I don't want to, but you have to have some skin in that game too, right? Show me how interested you are, okay? So let's go ahead and email those coaches. And I'll follow up for you. And here's how you find their emails. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But you can go directly to their site. Every coach wants to be found. So if you are really interested in said school and that program, you can go to their athletic website. You can find out who their head coach is, an assistant coach, a recruiting coordinator. That stuff's going to be listed. And there are some programs to make that easier for you that we'll talk about in a second. But let's go ahead and reach out. I've talked a little bit about it needs to be athlete driven. I promise you, there is no college coach that wants mom or dad making the first contacts. That doesn't mean there's not a point in the process that you should be involved, because this is a life-altering decision at some point. But these college coaches are looking for maturity. They're looking for something I said earlier, that do you want to come here and are you interested, or does mom want you to come here or dad want you to come here? So don't fall in that, like, it doesn't mean on the back end you can't help prepare stuff. We know your kids are busy. They're, you know, studying hard and they're playing hard and all that kind of stuff. You can help. Hey, let me look at that email and just make sure you don't look like you're totally, you know, off base. So you can help, but let your kid do the contacting. They're not going to read a novel. Give them the information they need. Hey, I go to this school. I've got this GPA. This is my test score. This is the position that I play. Maybe some key stats, you know, type of thing. Stats are kind of enough. You know, if you are a, you know, whatever, they don't care if you hit 10 home runs because they don't know who you're playing. You know, there are some sports that are really great for that. If you're a golfer and your average is 67, they can look up your slope. You're a pretty good golfer. I don't care where you're playing, unless it's a par 3, right? If you are a swimmer, if you're a track person, a cross-country person, those are the easiest kids to recruit because that's your number. That's your time. You know, even if the wind was blowing, really great that day. It's still, they know if you're running, the 221 seconds that you fit in their program. So you don't have to sell yourself as much. But we can talk about what that should look like. And have a link to that video that you are now creating. And I guarantee you that every one of our student athletes either already know how to do it much better than we do or can figure it out pretty quickly. With all the technology that our kiddos know, that'll be pretty easy for them. And a recruiting resume, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. But create a recruiting resume right now, whether you're in 7th grade or 12th grade, because you can adjust and update that as you go. Okay, and I'll show you that here in a little bit. Maybe next. Yeah. So this is my dollars, and it doesn't really matter what it says. I'm showing this to kind of show you the format. And this is what we created together. Okay? And it's got a picture of her, because whether you like it or not, and I don't know if that's a good one or a bad one, but part of this recruiting process is what you look like getting off the bus. And what I mean by that is, if you are talking about how great of a Division I basketball player and you're 4'11", you're really going to have to sell me on that, or if there is something to coaches saying, I can tell that looks like an athlete. That's what your film is going to do too. When you have your stick skills or you have your foot skills and you have some game footage, they are not only looking to see what kind of soccer player, they're looking to see if they have an athlete. What you look like. And it matters to many. So this is a little bit, paragraph about me, introducing where you go to school, where are you from, where you're from, activities that you're involved in. It's an introduction. It shouldn't be a page. It should be a small paragraph. Leadership recognition. Matt was really lucky to kind of do some really cool things, with leadership and getting some awards and sportsmanship. They care about that stuff. They're looking for a well-rounded, not only athlete, but a well-rounded person. It is a good thing for them when they feel like they can get a kid coming in that's going to help raise the team GPA. That will be an important factor. Now, you still got to play, but those are the kinds of things you want to sell up front. Other activities and interests, I play these other kind of things. Family profile, you make it personal. Hey, I have 3 brothers and sisters. I have 2 dogs, Ralphie and Josie. A reference sheet, and then to the right, how can they contact you? Because at some point, if it's Division III, they can contact you anytime they want. And I've got a recruiting calendar of when schools can reach out, and Division I can't reach out until June 15th. Sam, after your junior year for field hockey, they can't call you. But after June 15th, they're going to be calling you every day. Okay, so, hey, I'm a sophomore. Why haven't I heard from a school? They can't. But a Transylvania down in Lexington can call you every single day. They can email you because they're a Division III program. So that it matters what division. But how do you want them to get a hold of you? And if you are a social media person, which almost every single student athlete is, you should really monitor what that looks like. And maybe you have a separate one from your personal private one. All right, you hear the stories all the time about somebody losing their scholarship because of something silly they were doing on social media. That stuff really happens. But, you have Instagram, you have Twitter, you're following them, they're following you back. This is all part of the game. Okay? So that's an example of what a athletic resume would look like. Increasing your exposure, you should not pay $750 to go to every single camp, every single weekend. But what I would encourage you to think about is if you really want to be an Ivy League kid and you really want to go to Harvard and they're offering a camp, that might be one you think about. If you go to, I'll live in the field hockey world for a second, because as I said, I'm going through that right now with my oldest. There's a camp called Super 60, probably the best thing that we've done from a field hockey standpoint. We had to drive a little bit to Hershey, Pennsylvania. It's Super 60 because that means there's 60 college coaches there, and it's all levels. And you play about 12 games in 3 days, and it's absolutely just tiring. But every half, you have at least 2 college coaches as your coaches. So for 20-minute halves, they're getting to know you, they're watching you play, they're allowed to talk to you, even if you're a freshman or a sophomore, because that's kind of one of the loopholes they have, and that's why they put stuff like that on. It was expensive, but at least I think of a school like Bucknell, which some may know what Bucknell is, or who Bucknell is, and who they're not. We had a girls basketball win and play, go there and play, and that's the only reason I knew about Bucknell. It's a Division I school, but it's not a Power 5 school. And Matt comes that night like, I love the Bucknell coach. He was awesome. That was good. And he talked to me like the whole time, and I could tell he liked me. And that's how you start kind of. I didn't even know anything about Bucknell, but now I'm following them, and I'm going to research them, and I'm going to see if they have my major, and I'm going to try to understand what college life is like at Bucknell. Like that's how you get introduced to some places that you may have never thought of. So that's it. That's increasing your exposure. So you're interviewing them, and they're interviewing you, and it's kind of a fairly low pressure type of thing. So that Super 60 is that massive, a bunch of coaches, are there, but you also have the opportunity to, remember that wish list and that realistic and those fallback? Maybe you're looking at that list and you're checking when they have opportunities, and now you're on their campus, and you're not only getting that sport kind of vibe, but you're just getting the culture type of vibe. Now you're starting to check some of those boxes and things off your list. And then, you get to the end and they like you and you like them, but there's 3 schools and now it's really going to be difficult. These are some of the things that as a family you should think about. What is it going to cost you? How much money are you getting? For most of us that matters. For some of it might not, and that's great. You're in a great situation if that's you. Do you want to play? Is it important for you to say, I'm at a Power 5 school and I made it to the very top level? I don't know if I'll ever play, but I'm on the team, I'm getting the gear, and that is totally okay if that's you. But you know what? Maybe a MAC is a better because I'm going to go play right away, or I'm going to get a chance to play early, or I know I'm going to get a chance to play versus I made it. We've got a kid right now that is at an awesome university, and he's been there for a semester, and he's now in the transfer portal. And luckily, it's a sport that I know a lot about, and I know a lot of coaches. And he said, hey, when we went through this, I sat down with Dad, and I sat down with him, and I said, there's some really good opportunities, and there's a school down the street in baseball that just made the tournament, and I'm really good friends with Scott Googans at UC, and I've been talking, and I know he wants you, and are you not interested? I like them, and I like Coach Googans, but this is my dream. Then you got to chase it. I'm not going to hold you back. You go do it. I called Coach Googans yesterday, and Coach Googans has reached out to him. He's in transfer portal. We'll see what happens. But when you say, I made it to the very top, or I made it to my dream location, it doesn't always work out. So it goes back to let's have that realistic list and spend time going through all those things that we just talked about. Okay, the bottom line is the most important, and it's kind of what I was just talking about. You have to, there are all kinds of things that happen. One, every year there's a new recruiting class. You think you might be 3rd on the depth chart, and as a sophomore, now you're 4th because they just brought in a stud freshman and they're better than you. So you have to make a decision wherever you choose to go to school. Are you going to be happy there? Not that you can't transfer, you can't change your mind, but are you going to be happy at that school if athletics doesn't work out? And that should be part of your decision-making process. Could be injury, could be you're just not good enough, it could be a coaching change. The last coach really liked me, but this coach likes to slow the ball down, and the last coach, we ran full court the whole time. Those are the kinds of things that happen. Okay, some helpful hints. We have a problem in the past with this, and this was a social media thing. Don't say you're a 4.0 and you're a 2.0 when you're sending things out or on your social media, because one, now there's an integrity question, and you've probably wasted somebody's time when they get through the process and they get those official transcripts that are now loaded in the eligibility center, because that's really what they're checking. You've told them you are this, and when they get the official records. And coaches are a community. Coaches are a fraternity or sorority. They talk. So if as soon as Ohio State likes you, 5 other schools like you, because if Ohio State wants you, then we probably should want you too. Okay, and as soon as you burn someone like that, or you've been untruthful, that will spread like wildfire. So be truthful on your stats, on your GPA, on your test scores, because some of those, the GPA and test scores, they will get the official transcript and they will know. If you fudge your stats and you're scoring 50 a game and you can't hit the side of a bar, and they're like, what? How in the heck were you scoring 50 points a game? So don't put yourself in that situation. Talked about social media. It's important. You have to be smart about it. You can't do silly things that's going to come back even as a 14 or 15-year-old and bite you as a 17 or 18-year-old. Talked about mom or dad. Student athletes need to be the one doing this. Mom and dad, please take a little bit of a back seat, encourage your kid, help them get the stuff or help them stay on a timeline, but let them do the communicating. And don't overpay for recruiting services. There are some that are really good, and every one of these things that we talked about, you can do, and I can help you do. But the reality of it is, some of us will say that we could do it, but I just don't have the time. Or I still feel like we need an advantage, so we're going to get some help. That's okay. Do that. And there are a lot of them out there. And probably the most common is NCSA. That's Next College Student Athlete. There's some really good things that they have, that they offer. From an athletic director standpoint, I get a free account because they, I can get in and kind of look at schools and look at so I have an administrator account that I use also personally, kind of like, okay, let's see. We'll be the test dummies. Let me see if this helps my kid. And it makes things really easy. You can put in, I'm a field hockey player, and every field hockey school will come right up, and every contact, and you can send emails back and forth to those contacts, and it's all stored in one location. If, $3,000 to help you kind of manage some of that is worth it to you, I'm not going to tell you not to do it. I had mentioned the video. Don't pay someone $3,000 to come up with a really cool 15-minute video with songs and transitions, because that's not what they want to see. They don't have time for it. But if you say, you know what, okay, I'm going to keep it that 3 to 4 minutes, and I do want it to be professional, and you're going to pay, then do it. And so I'm not going to tell you not to do that stuff, but you should not feel like you have to overpay a recruiting service to find the right fit for your kid. And, these are things that you can look at later. It talks about when schools can send you information, or when they can reach out, when they can email, when they can call. And every sport is different, so it's hard to say, okay, what do you want to know about soccer? What do you want to know? Every sport has different timelines of when and what they can do. So that's kind of one of those things that you just need to kind of dive in and learn a little bit about. And again, just kind of little fun facts. There are 7.5 million approximate high school athletes in the United States. And that's, we have a lot of kids participating, which is great. Of those 7.5 million, about 500,000 will move on to play at the collegiate level, at the NCAA collegiate level, which is about 6%. So it's not a high number, but every one of our students, as I mentioned before, that have the passion and have the want and have just enough athletic ability, there's a place for you. It's a matter of if you want what options are given to you. Okay, and then, professional athletes, if you're an NCAA athlete, about 2% of those people will go on to be professional athletes. So that's my information. If you send me an email because you want this presentation, I'll email you right back with the PowerPoint. I I think that's probably just the best way to do it. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, this is really the beginning, informational kind of, you need some direction of where to go. And if you want more information, I'm happy to schedule a meeting with not just your kid, but the whole family, and kind of help direct and get on the right path. Use me for that. We have a college counseling office that is just down the hall from me, and they will also help, and they will help get materials in your eligibility center profile and all that kind of stuff. But please ask. Our job is to help make your athletic experience as great as possible. That is, we all have an IH promise as administrators, and mine says something exactly like that. I guess it does something exactly, doesn't go together. But my goal for you is to make the athletic experience for your kid the best that it can be. Okay? So let me help with that. Thank you. I appreciate the audience. This is something we will do more often, and hopefully the audience will grow. But I figured if I had one person and I could help them think through that, it was going to be worth my time. So I hope this was worth your time. Thank you. Have a great break and holiday.
I just CC'd you in the email to him. All right, hey, see, I'll try to stop up at. Well, are you at work tomorrow? I'll try to stop up there tomorrow. All right, I see you.
What's going on, man?
Ain't nothing, man. There's a lot of late nights around here, man, with no basketball. I got to have no ball in my life.
Man, it's a dearth. I miss the kids. Like when I saw Folky today when I went out to get the mail.
Yeah.
And, man, just talk to them for about 10 minutes. I miss them.
Yeah.
These kids. Is my man down there wearing some ropers? You got some boots on? Hey, Brian. I think he's got some. I think he's got some.
Yeah, he got something, though. I seen him with something on.
Yeah, I think he's got a little heel on. I think he's got some. They call those ropers, man.
Yeah.
Well, you're a Kentucky guy. You probably got some.
No. My daddy used to wear them when I was little.
Yeah.
Oh, he'd be shining that little cowboy hat and everything.
Is that right?
Yes, sir. Called the Black Cowboy.
Hey, there's a guy up in Ohio State, man. I got my picture taken with him. He came out to something. It was like Greeny and who was that? The other dude, the Notre Dame kid. Yeah, from